The 2000 election between Gore and Bush is the second closest election in U.S. history. Despite winning the popular vote, Gore would lose the Electoral College by 5 points to Bush, though the final decision is extremely controversial and is contested to this day. Across the entire United States, there are problems that day with voting, including out-of-date voting technology and voter suppression. The most famous and controversial problem occurred in Palm Beach County, Florida. The county had its own unique voting system that proved to be confusing for many, and its decision ultimately swayed the Electoral College. The voting system was nicknamed the Hanging Chads due to the butterfly ballot, which required voters to punch a hole in the ballot or chads next to the corresponding candidate. There were some large problems with voting. Here are some of the scenarios. Scenario 1. People poked multiple holes in the ballots after accidentally choosing the wrong candidate first and then going back and choosing the right candidate. These were called overvotes and had to be called invalid. Scenario 2. People poked out the wrong hole for their candidate as the ballot was confusing. Scenario 3. The chad was not completely poked through, and both people and the machines had a hard time distinguishing who the ballot was cast for. These were called undervotes. 29,000 votes, approximately 3% of the votes in Palm Beach County, were thrown away because they were invalid in some way. The Reform Party candidate, Pat Buchanan, received 2,700 more votes than in any other county in the U.S., surprisingly, as he had not campaigned there, but the chad for the candidate aligned well with that of Gore's.
Closely. It's so easy to confuse who you're voting for, and it's just as easy to double punch the ballot. Because after you vote for Buchanan, you say, hey, listen, I want Gore, so you make another punch.
On election night, or early the following day, it seemed Bush had won the election, and Gore was too far behind to come back, prompting Gore to call Bush and concede the election. Bush's large lead in Florida shifted to being only within 1,000 of Gore's, prompting Gore to retract his concession of the election. Hints of uncertainty arose from voting systems in Florida, like that in Palm Beach County, and due to the vote being within 0.5% of one another, a county-wide recount was called mandatorily. Following the still undecided election, recounts started across Florida. These recounts soon paused as it was unclear whether or not counties had the right to set recount laws. On November 15th, 8 days later, however, the Florida Supreme Court ruled to allow hand recounts, even after George W. Bush and his legal team tried to stop them. Recounts were requested by Gore and his legal team in the state of Florida, but were argued against by Bush and his own legal team. This was until the U.S. Supreme Court stated that it would hear the case on the 1st of December, a little less than a month after Election Day. On December 8th, the Florida Supreme Court orders the manual recount of votes, but on December 9th, in a 5-4 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court declares a stay and stops manual recounts. On December 12th, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 7-2 in favor of stopping the recount and awarding the 25 Electoral College points to Bush, as the recount order by the Florida Supreme Court was the creation of a new election law, which could only be done by state legislature, and violated the 14th Amendment, as it denied those who voted, citizens of the U.S., protection under the law. Being December 12th, approximately a month away from the day the president was to be sworn in, the Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 vote that it was too late for any new law to be made before electors made their selections, and that Gore would have to concede the election, which he did the next day. In an independent study of the disputed ballots, a year later, done by the NORC of the University of Chicago, contracted by a host of the largest news organizations in the United States, including CNN and the New York Times, found that in a full statewide review of all the disputed ballots, both under and overvotes, Gore won each different standard of recounting the ballots in Florida, including the standards set forth by each respective county, computer readings, mechanized ballot counting systems, and manual recounts, putting in question the power of the courts in the U.S. and their involvement in the election.
because of an illegal ballot, their votes were not counted for Al Gore. There is a remedy under Florida law which needs to be followed, which is in fact a statistical adjustment so we get to the standard, and the standard is what do the people want to vote for. Once that standard is done, it is absolutely 100% certain that Al Gore will gain a large enough number of votes that would be clearly far in excess of the difference between Gore and Bush statewide, and he should get Florida's electors' votes and he should be elected President of the United States.